Hello everybody. I know I got a silly hat on, and excuse the wind. We're in a plastic structure, as you might have figured out. It's not exactly wind friendly, but we'll figure it out. So here's seeds. I'm in the middle of doing a lot of transplanting. This is how I do it. What you got going on here is a bunch of seeds in 4-inch, 3-inch pots, 3.5, 4-inch pots. I have them kind of mixed together. They're in two types of trays, as you can tell. This is a solid tray, and then that one right there, you can see it better, is a net tray. I prefer the net trays. All the solid trays I have drill out corners, because if there's a catastrophic water incident or someone doesn't know what they're doing, kind of gets a hold of your plants, if you don't have the drains in, they'll all die, and pretty quickly. Overwatering kills roots really fast. And that is going to be a mantra of ours. Moisture matters, and your moisture content of your medium, whatever it may be, really does matter. So, this is a short explanation of how you deal with seeds. So, one thing you gotta know, oh, look at that. Those are my hemp plants. Nothing. So, alright. This right here is a cocoa. I don't have the package. It gets reconstituted, so it comes to you in like a brick, super dehydrated. That stuff is really good, in my opinion, to work with. Something else that's really good to work with is something over here you probably saw. And it looks just like cocoa, but it's not. This is peat. Peat's really good to work with as well, especially with seeds, except for peat's a lot different than cocoa. Cocoa has a much higher draining quality, while peat will cling to that moisture. For that reason alone, I tend to like to water and check moisture often, and water a little bit more. So I tend towards cocoa, and it's also, cocoa has a big advantage where it's sustainable. Either way, if I use either one of these two, I use another product called Hydroton. There it is in there. Comes to you, here's the name of it, Hydroton, product of Germany. It's good stuff. It's not cheap. I think that bag is about $25. But it's really high quality. And what we do with it, you can kind of tell in here, but what I do is I grab it for the drainage at the bottom. So I put in about that much, and for the purposes of keeping the bottom dry. It's very high draining. If you get a sludgy bottom, that's the #1 cause of root rot and fungal-borne diseases. Fungal inoculation of dangerous fungus and spores can really hurt your soil production. But conversely, you can inoculate with, probiotics, as it were, and it actually does really well for you. And we'll go into that later, but just get back to the seeds that we were talking about. What I do then is take a handful of my cocoa. As you can tell, it's pretty dry. It kind of gets moist as you get down further. And you add it into your pot. Shake it a little bit. Don't pack it down. People love to do that. No, don't. Sorry, I hit the camera there. So yeah. What I then do is take my finger and my thumb, just like so, and I start edging the soil to the center. And that basically creates your canals for seeds. I'm going to go get my seeds shortly, so you'll see me actually plant them. But what I'll do is I'll put the seeds right in these chambers of around 4 or 5 on each side. And then I go like that, and it's over. You're done. They'll then go in a tray and sit in a windowsill, or even shelving near a windowsill is fine. The key is to keep it warm. It doesn't have to be above 65, but you definitely want it to be closer to 75-ish in an ideal temperature world. Don't go above 85, 90, then you start to get problems out of the way. You can seed in those temperatures, but moisture is critical, and if you end up having not enough moisture, your plants die. So you might say, wow, look at all these plants. These have been in there about 2 weeks, maybe 12 days, and they look like they're a real problem. And they kind of are, honestly. But what most people don't realize is that it's actually pretty easy to deal with. So what I've been doing here is taking these groups that you see on the right, and I move them, I pull them apart and individually plant them, like you see on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the next step, basically, down the road. So let me set you up here. Oh, wrong direction. Alright. Bear with me. Alright, so here we go. First you're going to need some empty pots, and then the Hydroton and the Coco I showed you earlier. What you do is you take your pot that's full, and you gently kind of press on the sides. Just, you see what I'm doing? Like very, very little pressure. And that will loosen the plants up. Here we have roots coming out of the bottom, so that's not an entirely big problem. Sometimes they're way worse. Generally, if you tip it slightly, everything will just come right out. And there you have it. A bunch of roots all tangled together. Now you can tell I have little starts already falling off. That plant's so much smaller that it doesn't have a chance in this situation. It's going to die. The roots are getting choked out. Same with this one. Looks like it's maybe already died. It was the top of another plant. Didn't quite make it. So what I do is, you can see the Hydroton underneath there. You kind of gently massage the Hydroton out. And it's really key you have a delicate touch here. That's the key. Now you can already see one plant just start to fall off. When that happens, just kind of put it to the side, just like so. This one's the next one that's logically ready to go. I just put my thumb there, just slowly kind of ease it out. All the roots just pop right out. You have another start. Now, you'll notice I'm in a partly shaded area, and that's key to doing this. Also, what's key is, you see I tried to grab this one and it didn't pull. Don't work it. If it's not pulling, it's not ready yet. It's not the one you want. This one seems pretty logical. And I heard a root snap, but one root, not going to harm the plant. That's called root pairing. It's not the greatest thing to do. If you pair too much of the roots, you kill it dead. But for the most part, root pairing's fine. Now you notice I kind of am keeping the roots all together and the top of the plant all together. That's because you don't want soil, cocoa, anything on these tops. That harms the plant. It'll grow more slowly. You have a higher chance of it dying. Same with the roots. You want the roots to be filled up with moist cocoa. So if it takes you a little bit of time to do this, they don't just die on you. Alright. So we got all those squared away. Now, because I didn't put seeds in this, we're going to go ahead and knock out all the cocoa. Forgot if there was a Hydroton in there. There was not. Oh, ha! Look at that. See, that just illustrates it for you. That was peat. That's why I didn't have any Hydroton in it. See, dry peat and cocoa are really similar. So let's put the peat back. Here's the cocoa, and I'm pretty sure it does have Hydroton, which it does. Okay, so we'll go here. Now, what most people do as far as mistakes go is they try to use too much median before they put the plant in. Best way to deal with this is grab a big handful out. You can tell I'm pretty much down to the Hydroton. There's a little bit of cocoa in there, not a lot. Take one of your plants, root system like so, and you just gently kind of put it down there. You want it to not crawl up the sides at all, and all be around the cocoa as much as possible. Then you take a handful of the cocoa you pulled out, and keeping my thumb there to hold it up in vertical, I put the cocoa in. Now, if you get some cocoa on the tops, best way to do it as far as workflow is concerned is you just wash it off. When you water these in later, just hit the leaves real well. And it goes over here. And so on. So I'm going to knock these out. As you can tell, without that fan, you guys can hear, but I am sweaty. So I'm going to take my hat off, do the rest of this, and we'll cut to the full tray being done, me watering them in. But I wanted to show you this over here. Ooh, totally transplant. Look at that. So, what do we got here, you say? This is a plug tray. Now, my brother and probably several other of you aren't interested in trying to delicately pull roots apart. It's a little bit better for you to front load the work into a plug tray. This eliminates some of the guesswork on that, and I don't begrudge anyone for anything. If this is your way, this is how to do it. Now, a plug tray, oh, there's a little straggler plant that one in the peat maybe. Alright, so you wouldn't want to do this with a dirty tray like I have now, but I'll demonstrate how it fits together. You can use these with the net trays or not net trays, it doesn't really matter. As long as there's holes in your solid trays. Some people don't like to drill holes. If that's you, well then so be it. So this is how I'd handle this situation. Alright, so let me set you guys up in a spot where you can see what I'm doing. Oh, wrong way. Do that a lot. Alright, so basically I'm going to grab the Hydroton, in one of my pots like so. Hydroton. You can do this with perlite, you can do this with rocks. Hydroton is an awesome product, but it is expensive. I've even used this before in bigger setups. It's just like a chunk of clay pot. You put enough clay pot or even river rocks, you're good. So in this case, the Hydroton is going to be an advantage because it's so small. Now, if you use perlite or vermiculite, please, please, please remember to run hoses through your bags. If you don't run hoses through your bags and get it all moist before you deal with it, it goes airborne and it's basically glass, little silica shards, and it's just not good to breathe. So I'm going to take some of these and just add them into the plugs in the bottom. You want about the bottom fourth or fifth. Not a big deal. Now, the reason why this is important, especially in these plug trays, is that, and that's one of the nightmares, is if you put too much, it's difficult to readjust, so you kind of just got to live with it. So, as I was saying, the reason why this is mandatory is if you look closely on these plugs, you can see that it's concave actually. The plug is actually that these are meant for, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. They're not concave. They're graduated. So they're like a cone is what they are. And the small part's on the bottom. So a larger amount of water will concentrate in a smaller amount of water through gravity, and you'll just get water more likely to linger in these. Now they drain really well because of that large hole, but that action with a median like, especially like peat moss like what we have here, likes to stick together, especially when it's wet. If you get this wet, it stays wet for a while and it clumps real bad. It sinks too. All the voids get knocked right out of it. So when you're dealing with a plug tray, it's really important to add the drainage. So then, because I'm not a big fan of these for myself, just going to demonstrate what you would do. And I'm actually not going to do the whole tray. So I got my several rows there. What I'm going to do is just add in the cocoa. Now, a little bit, not too much. See? And if it's too much, pull some out. It's alright. And until you got something like this, which sees most of your Hydroton is covered, and you have just some cocoa there. Now what you'd want to do, I did a poor job. What you want to do is get a minimum bottom kind of area, and then you would throw your seed right in there. This will be our seed, even though it's a plant, or it's our dummy seed. Now you throw your seed in there, and you'd want to cover it. And once it's covered like that, you pretty much have the same thing as I demonstrated earlier with the 3-inch pot. It's ready to water in. So remember, when you're planting your seeds and you're transplanting, it's really, really important. Always water in. I'll show you what that looks like here. Watering in. I got the hose going here, as you can tell. I'm letting all the hot water run out of it. That's really important when you're dealing with delicate seeds. Don't nuke them with the hot water. Also, you notice that it's not really going super strong. That's another thing. You don't really need a lot of water pressure. If you have too much, you'll disturb the soil and it won't do so hot. You might maybe knock out the seed even, or even knock out too much of the median that you kill the plant later on. So now that was a little too much. But as you can tell, even if you hit it with a little too much, it'll start to drain on you. Now this is pretty good for the larger plants. Although you can see the voids start to fill in pretty good, and it's all starting to drop down pretty well. And that one right there on the corner, I'm going to have to actually redo that one. Because you notice all the rest of them, when I did it, I kind of got the leaves clean. You see that one in the corner? That one's over if I don't do something about it. The leaves are in a bad situation. So what I do is I knock it back up, and it's got to drain. Now, this is the huge problem I just outlined further, is that see this tray? This tray's got water in it, and the plug is probably not on the drain side. Now when I set these up, I always put the plug on the most downhill side, but this is acting like it doesn't have a drain plug at all, and that's a problem. So what I'm going to do right now is just dump the water. And as you can see on my seedling trays, that seed, the little sprout that's being represented as a seed is showing. Now, I wouldn't do this if this were an actual sprout, but since we're representing a seed here, what we do is that. And then we'd add a little bit more water until it looks like that, in which case it's alright. Now what I'm going to do is now save the seed and actually plant it somewhere. Or excuse me, the little seedling. I'm going to plant it somewhere. And I'm going to finish this. Because I have a little bit more to do with that one right there. As you can see, it has cocoa on it still, which is no good. And honestly, cocoa is, for the most part, not super caustic. But once there's feed in there, it becomes a whole different story. And if you're using amendments, that's feed. Or even a rich soil, I would consider feed. Now look at that, I hammed it up. Again. You know what it is? It's my hose. My hose is just not so hot. So, I turn down a little bit. Still pretty strong. Yeah, so this actually happens. This is a good thing to show you guys. I'm running into a problem that does happen from time to time. And what's happened is, if I can get to pan up here. If you guys can see that, the Hydroton is blocking every hole. So Hydrotons is a ball, and if the ball happens to line up with the drain plug, it can very effectively block it out. Now the way you deal with that is you just move the Hydroton around a little bit to where you have a couple of those drain plugs going at the very least. And you can tell now it's alright. And then I'm going to replant. So just put some cocoa back on it. And then when I do this, it won't create a huge pool like it was before. A little bit more cocoa. A little bit more water. Hold it up. See, there's a pesky root there. What I do with pesky roots is I just maneuver cocoa onto them, and then they disappear. Alright, so that tray is filled back up with water. I'm going to dump that out and then place it in a sunny area. Pretty much anywhere can work as a sunny area. If you're in a cold climate, you can do some indoor lighting to supplement your window light, and wood-fired heat works really well. However, a stove works so well that it can dry your plants out and kill them pretty quick, so just be careful of that. So I'm hot, and that's going to conclude the first video of seeding and transplantation. Now, I actually didn't ever plant a seed, so what I'm going to do at the end of this video is I'm going to tack on a little time lapse of me actually planting some seeds. I got some sweet peppers in there. Maar je hoopt op iets stouts, want zoenen is zilver en bonen is goud. Straks leggen we vaster dan een fotozaal. Door en door als Joko Ono's rauw. Iets lekkers aan de haak slaan, dan hoop je dus nou. Druk je zoveel suikerzout, dan loopt het de klauw. Je weet dat er meer is dan gewoon maar wat laus. Als je rode biezen smaakt, dan stroganoff saus. Je voelt je overhoop en wanhopig benauwd. Gezichtskleur zwicht, aanlopend op blauw. En je lichaam heeft de vorm van een slopende bouw. Want je enkel ligt toch gauw, overhoop met je mouw. Doe maar net alsof je showt met een pose zo rauw. Voel de flow nou, of sta hopeloos in de kou. Brainpower in your area.